So let's talk about one of the most common derivative rules that we have out there. We have something called the product rule for derivatives. So your product rule is, what do you do if you're trying to derive two functions that are being multiplied together? Obviously, the word product means multiplied. So when you're doing a product rule, so for example, maybe the problem is asking you to derive x squared times sine of x. Or maybe it's asking you to derive something like 2x plus 5 times 3x squared minus 7, something like that, where you have two things being multiplied together. So the way the product rule works is you take the first function as is times the derivative of the second function, and then add that to the second function times the derivative of the first function. And you'll actually hear me say that a lot when I'm describing it. I'll say first times derivative of the second plus second times derivative of the first. When I'm using first and second, I'm talking about the two different functions that are being multiplied. The nice thing about the product rule is it doesn't matter the order you do this because these two things are being added. So as long as you take a derivative with an original plus a derivative with an original, you're good. It's a very, very flexible rule. So let me show you how it works in conjunction with the two examples that I wrote at the bottom of the page. So I'm going to consider my first function to be the x squared and my second function to be the sine. So first times the derivative of the second, the derivative of sine is cosine, plus the second times the derivative of the first. The derivative of x squared is 2x. Now, I would recommend putting any derivative that's with a trig function in front because it's really tempting to think that these things can be multiplied. That first x that's next to sine is the angle. The 2x is not. It's a multiplier. So I'm going to type it in and write it in as x squared cosine x plus 2x sine x. It's just way less of a chance of messing up how you write it, and I've seen that be the mistake too often. So now the second one, so first and second. Now you'll notice with this one, and there are situations like this where you don't have to use the product rule. You could just FOIL these together. And that's where algebra is a really big help. So there are ones that you'll look at and go, you know what, the product rule seems like a lot of work for something like this. I really like algebra. Let's multiply it together first, and then I can just go term by term, and that's completely fine. I am going to show you just what it looks like with using the product rule, so you kind of have some options. So first times the derivative of the second. The derivative of 3x squared minus 7 is 6x, plus the second times the derivative of the first. Derivative of 2x plus 5 is 2. Now you're going to want to clean this up a little bit. So you're going to end up doing algebra either in the beginning or the end. You can't really get around it. So when I distribute, I get 12x squared plus 30x plus 6x squared minus 14. And then when I put my like terms together, I get 18x squared plus 30x minus 14. And this would be the same answer you would get had you decided to do the algebra in the beginning by FOILing it and then go through and derive each term one at a time. So that is your derivative. So that's your product rule. As we learn more and more different derivatives, you're going to use the product rule more and more. It's one of those rules that from the day you learn it till the day you take the AP test, it's just constantly being used. So if it feels like a lot right now, it starts to hopefully become second nature as you work with it. So again, first function times the derivative of the second plus second function times the derivative of the first.